Hey you guys, it is Erin and Rebecca. We are In Between Friends. We are just excited to have you here joining us on the YouTube channel. Thanks so much for coming. If you haven't checked out our vlog yet, do that as well. There are little extra tidbits over there. But today we're talking about boundaries.
So important.
Oh my goodness. So here's the deal. We have talked about this probably in and out, and you've seen our other blogs from like a gazillion years ago.
We talked about boundaries in a hospital room.
Oh my gosh. So if we are talking about it when giving birth, clearly we believe in boundaries and that boundaries are life-giving. As a therapist, this is something that I work a lot with my clients. Again, I'm not your therapist, I'm not Erin's therapist, but I just know in my clinical work this is really important, but it's also really important in my own life. Mm-hmm. The biggest analogy I can say is it's like a fence. So if we're living next door to one another, there's clearly a property line. There's a property line that says this is my property, this is your property. I'm responsible for my property. Mm-hmm. You're responsible for your property. Now, let's just say that boundary can look like nothing, mm-hmm. just a line. Mm-hmm. That boundary can look like a chain link fence. That boundary can look like a picket fence. That boundary can look like a 50-foot brick wall mm-hmm. with potentially a moat around it. And so I think depending on who's on the other side of it would depend on what kind of boundary you actually
good analogy
have.
Absolutely.
And so those people who don't respect your boundaries,
the 50-foot wall.
With the moat. Why don't you give a little bit of your experience with boundaries, just like where you kind of wrestled with this mm-hmm. a bit just in your own life, in like what was life without boundaries and what was life with.
I mean, I think that was the first thing that I needed to do to gain any sort of self-confidence, have any sort of peace in my life. I was a child of divorce. My parents were volatile with each other. I wasn't necessarily close with my siblings at the time, and so in turn became a big people pleaser.
Yes.
And that carried over. No parent is like, hey, you're trying to please me too much. Why don't we stop that and get you healthy? No, they loved it, so they were just like, yeah, let's go on that. And then it reinforced that. So one of my first people that I had to place boundaries with were my parents.
Yeah.
My dad, not so much, because he kind of eyeballed it and was able to see. But moms are hard to unclench. Moms are hard.
Would you say it was part of your like sanity? It was kind of like reclaiming yourself.
100%. It really was. It was planting that flag in me and saying, I'm essential. I don't need to change.
Yeah.
We should all be changing and working on areas.
Yeah.
But as I'm coming into this, I'm enough.
Yeah.
And I don't need to try to please you.
Yeah. Okay, so I love what she just said when she said, I am enough. Period.
It's a hard thing to feel sometimes.
Well, particularly when you are really struggling with that space of like, am I enough? Am I enough? Because you may not deem that I'm enough. And so if you don't deem that I'm enough, then I need to keep working in regards to being enough for you so that you tell me I'm enough. And then, okay, so here's the building block of codependency, right? Is I've got to be this so that you love me. And the reality is that unless you are so stable in yourself, that kind of relationship is just going to suck life out of you.
Especially now, I find myself easily slipping back into a little bit of that mentality because of isolation. Mm-hmm. It started to kind of mess with my mind a little bit, and because I'm so lonely for interaction, I feel like my boundaries have changed, and so then I almost need to like reassess everybody because you're like reaching out for them.
I had a great analogy. All this is, I mean, it gets into neuroscience a little bit, but there's like cognitive mapping. So you've got neural synapses that like, basically think of it like a connection, right? You have a path, and the more that you take the same path, the more embedded it becomes. Yeah. So now I slip back into this path that it's super comfortable for me. It's comfortable for me to be a people pleaser. It's comfortable for me to not really.
A very natural thing.
It's very natural. And so to create a different pathway in which you're choosing, it takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of like, I'm going to say the keyword mindfulness. Mm-hmm. It takes a lot of mindfulness to choose opposite of what you are super trained to be. The stressed you get, the more easily you revert back to this mm-hmm. older kind of rut, if you think of it.
Can we talk about creating that new path too? It's painful. It's like if I've always been an exerciser, but I tend to get focused on one thing. I was a runner for a really long time. And what I found is, out running, you're using the same muscles over and over. And if I would just do a different exercise, it was just like, meh, I was just weak. And I was like, I never used this one muscle. It was like, but I work out all the time. How is this? It hurt. I was using a new muscle. I was training something else. It was hard to do.
And it feels awkward.
It feels awkward.
It's wrong. It feels wrong. Think of it like, I mean, I'll use your, it's like muscle memory. Your muscles just know. Not that your brain is a muscle, it's an organ, but it functions much like a muscle. Yeah. And so it goes back to this memory of doing something, I'm going to say incorrectly, I'm going to say, better term, unhealthy. So when I don't have boundaries, I lose myself into you, into the other person. And when I lose myself, now I'm no longer being true to myself. I don't remember who I am as an individual. And that's where everything becomes convoluted.
Being healthy and alive is a lot of work.
Oh my goodness.
Holy smokes.
Yes. I think that for me, I know I can do unhealthy very easily. Yeah. I like live and breathe unhealthy from like a very early age. So doing healthy takes a lot of energy. So don't be surprised, I would say to you as well and our audience, don't be surprised if it's like, oh my gosh, I'm here again. Yeah, but it's okay. It's a new day. It's a new dawn. You like pick yourself back up. Just keep going. That leads us into part 2. Because I think that is heavy enough, ladies and gentlemen.
So join us again for the next part in which we just point fingers at people and say who and why and how and just things that you can anticipate. This is one of the harder things in life. This is not a fun conversation. But if we're going to be talking about relationships and being essential to you, building you up, making you feel good, that's what they're here for, right?
100%.
If that's what the whole point of this vlog is, then this is step 1. But we're going to keep coming at you with more conversations, so please feel free to comment below. Let us know some topics you want us to talk about, or let us know about boundaries, what you think about that. We'd love to hear it. Anyways, till next time, bye.
Bye.